Hey everyone, I had a request from Jonathan to provide some information around spring and fall enrollment. So I think what the setup was he has a spreadsheet with a list of students that are enrolled in the fall and the spring. And maybe this is a table he might like to create where, as you can see here, we have information on the number that are enrolled in the fall, the number enrolled in the spring, those that are just enrolled in the fall, just the spring, and those that are enrolled in both. So there's a few ways to go about doing this. I'm just going to show one using filters and conditional formatting that I think is the easiest to grasp. Okay, so for fall and spring enrollment, it's quite simple. What we'll do is we're going to do a formula. We do our equal sign to tell Excel that it'll be a formula. And then we type the function count A, the letter A, and then do an open parentheses. I'm now going to click on my data. So notice here I have data of fall and spring enrollment with student names. So I'm just going to start with Luciana, who's the first student I have enrolled in the fall. And I'm going to scroll all the way down to Taylor, who's the last student. I'll close my parentheses and I'll hit enter. So that tells me there are 119 students enrolled in the fall. Now I can do the same thing for the spring by using the count A function, going back to my data, and in a similar manner, selecting with Ahmad all the way down to Wilson. All right, and so we noticed we lost a few students in the spring and we had 111. But I think the real question that Jonathan was getting at was, what do we do? Like, how do we know how many were enrolled in the fall and how many were enrolled in the spring and whether or not they were enrolled in both semesters? Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the data now first. And when I come to the top, I'm going to first create a filter. You do that by selecting the data ribbon up here and selecting the filter icon. This just lets me sort or perform different functions on these columns of data. Having done that, I'm going to go back to my home ribbon and I want to do some conditional formatting on all of these students. So I'm going to select all the students down from Taylor all the way through fall and spring. And I'm going to create some conditional formatting rules. Okay, so right now I don't have any selected. If I hit this little plus button, it'll bring up this style 2-color scale. I'm going to go down to classic because that's the one that's easiest for me to navigate from. So what I'd like to do is I would like to format only unique or duplicate values. I click this first drop down. And so it asks me, okay, well, if there are duplicate values, that would mean it would be students showing up twice anywhere in this. And for us, our purposes, that would be fall and spring. So instead of filling that in with the red, I'm going to change that to green because that means we had them in both time periods. And I'm going to click OK. Now, the second thing I want to do is I want to add another rule, same process, going down to classic, but this time going to duplicate or unique values. Instead of doing duplicate, I want to click unique here. And if I do that, I would like it red. That'll tell me if a student's just enrolled in the spring or just enrolled in the fall. So if I hit OK here, I've got both my rules applied to the same set of data. And when I hit OK, we can see that Excel goes through and finds any duplicates. So Luciana was enrolled in the fall. Now, even though I don't see her here, I'd have to scroll down to the L's, it looks like. I can see that she's also in the spring. But Excel does that for us. So anyone that's green, we know that they're in both fall and spring. And anyone that's red, that means that they only show up once, either in the fall or in the spring. So now it's just, now we just need to count. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use these filters we created. So what I'm going to do first is I want to count if they're just enrolled in the fall. Okay, so by doing that, I click on this little drop down arrow. And I'm going to filter by color. And I want to filter that by the cell color of rose. That is going to give us just those students who are enrolled in the fall. And now the kind of fast way to do this is to just select from Trisha down to Eric and look down here at the count. If you look here, it says 14 or 14 of 119 records. So I know that there were 14 students that were enrolled in the fall that do not appear in the spring. So I'm going to go over to my table and I'm going to type 14 for that fall only. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to clear my filter and get everyone back. All right. And I'm going to do that same process for the spring. So I'd like to filter the spring now using that drop-down arrow by the color of rose. And now I'm going to go into the spring and count from Ahmad to Shaylee. If I just highlight it, the count here says 7 or 7 of 119 records. So when I go into my table, I can hit 7. So we know of the fall enrollment of the 119 in the fall, 14 only came to the fall and 7 were enrolled in the spring. Now the question is, who were enrolled in the fall and the spring? So going back to my data, I'm going to clear my filter again. And I'm just going to use the fall enrollment. It won't matter because they'll be the same in either column. But I'm going to filter now by the cell color of light green. And when I do that, I can select from Luciana all the way down to Taylor and notice that I have 105 as the count, or 105 and 100 of 119 records, and I can fill that in. Okay. So by using conditional formatting, by using filters, we were able to also use Excel's count function here to find out who was enrolled in the fall, who was enrolled in the spring, and how many we had in both. Now, of course, from this table, we could calculate percentages, or we could create a visual if we'd like to, but that should give you a good idea of how to go through that process. I hope this was helpful.